Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MALDEF's Los Angeles 2022 Awards Gala. Tonight, we'd like to thank our sponsors: Verizon, Adobe, Toyota, Atkinson, Andelson, Loya, Rude, and Romo, the California Community Foundation, Southern California Edison, Airbnb, Andrade Gonzalez LLP, NBC Universal Telemundo, Siebert Williams Shank, McGuire Woods, AT&T, Southern California Gas Company, Bill Lan Lee, Sidley Austin, Ambassador Vilma Martinez, Steven Islas, the Hispanic Coalition of Small Businesses, Los Angeles Community College District, the California Community Foundation, the California Teachers Association, Tonight, we honor Odilia Romero, Lalo Alcaraz, and Monica Garcia. MALDEF is pleased to present this short video from our National Gala sponsor, Verizon.
When the revolution come knocking at my door, I ain't fighting just for myself no more. Got my brothers by my side, and on the wings of freedom we ride. When the revolution come knocking at my door.
At Verizon, we are committed to closing America's digital divide. We are investing to bring tech and connectivity to underserved schools across the country, making high-quality connectivity more affordable for low-income families, and expanding access to rural communities so more people have the affordable, high-quality internet they deserve. It's all part of our $3 billion commitment to help those who need it most and close the digital divide. Because we believe no one should be left behind.
Revolution come knocking at my door.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome National Gala sponsor Adobe, Group Manager and Executive Chair Antonio Thomas Humphreys.
Buenas noches, ¿cómo estás? Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the MALDEF organization for this incredible opportunity. Adobe has always been committed to building a diverse and inclusive environment for our employees, customers, partners, and the broader tech industry. We believe that when people feel respected and included, they can be more creative, innovative, and successful. We call this vision Adobe for All. Yeah. Although there is still much more work to be done to advance diversity and inclusion, we are moving our company and industry forward by partnering with our communities, strategically funding key organizations and initiatives, and further supporting the protection and advancement of equal access to opportunities for marginalized and underrepresented groups to create greater impact. As a first step in this effort, Adobe, with financial support from the Adobe Foundation, launched a 3-year equity and advancement initiative last year with 11 leading international and domestic nonprofit organizations, including MALDEF, that will seek, yeah, come on, all right, that will seek to address systemic barriers to opportunity and advance social equity. Through this model, the Adobe Foundation and our company are making long-term strategic commitments and investing an initial $20 million across nonprofit organizations over 3 years, along with Adobe product, public policy, and volunteering support. With this equity and advancement initiative, Adobe is focused on providing meaningful partnership opportunities, learning experiences for employees, and new ways of leveraging our unique strengths in support of key issues, not only to our company, but to our communities that can elevate diverse new voices. We are very excited to be partnering with MALDEF, along with other nonprofit organizations, to help create equal access to education, economic opportunity, provide career development opportunities to empower and equip the next generation of leaders, and fight for the protection and advancement of human rights to sustain the infrastructure supporting diversity and inclusion. Our hope is that Adobe's resources and platforms will extend the critical work that MALDEF is doing in their mission to protect and defend the rights of all Latinos living in the U.S. and the constitutional rights of all Americans. Thank you again to the MALDEF team, partners, and allies for all your incredible work to support our community in the areas of education, employment, immigrants' rights, voting rights, access to justice, and freedom from open and obvious racism. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Los Angeles GALA co-chair Toyota, Group Manager for Toyota's Parts Supply Chain Operations, Santos Bugarin.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to represent Toyota here tonight at this very prestigious event. It's also an honor to celebrate 3 people who have devoted their lives to serving our shared community: Odilia Romero, Lalo Alcaraz, and Monica Garcia. Yeah, let's hear it for them. On behalf of Toyota, congratulations to all for this well-deserved recognition. Toyota has a partnership with MALDEF for many years. This may surprise you. What does a global mobility company have in common with the Mexican-American Defense Fund? The answer is all of you in this room. We have a long, productive history with the Latino community, one that we are continuously widening and deepening. One of our core pillars of our philosophy at Toyota is respect for all, and for all the people and everything that we do. We believe that when all people have equal access to opportunity, everyone in our society prospers. As a global company, we know that we need to do our part to create leveling that playing field, to create the possibility for all people to live successful lives. We have a brand new initiative at Toyota that aims to do just that, and it's called Driving Possibilities, and I'm very excited about it. This program will partner with innovative educational programs and improve access to opportunities where barriers exist. The Toyota USA Foundation has committed $110 million to driving possibilities with the vision of creating limitless possibilities for all people. $110 million. Let's hear it for it. Tonight, we celebrate 3 individuals who have embraced possibility. I'm sure their journeys weren't easy at times, but they pushed through, they persevered, and our shared community is richer for it. Congratulations again to Odilia, Lalo, and Monica. I also wish to thank Thomas Saenz and the MALDEF staff for the amazing work you do every day to create opportunities for our shared community. Let's hear it for the MALDEF staff. Thank you and enjoy your evening.
Please welcome MALDEF Board Chair and Partner at Atkinson, Andelson, Loya, Rude, and Romo, Irma Rodriguez Moisa.
Hello, LA! On behalf of the Board of Directors, I am so honored and pleased to welcome you to the Los Angeles Gala. The city of Los Angeles, quite frankly, represents the best of our nation. Its diversity, its people, its resources. We, quite frankly, compare to no one. We represent the future of the United States of America right here in Los Angeles. I know that there are many other board members here, and Tom is going to introduce them all and welcome them all. But I also want to say that as I think I may be the first board chair that's a former Maldefian staff attorney, and so I believe I have other former Maldefian family members here. So on behalf of them, because I know we all continue to come to the dinner to celebrate the incredible work of the tireless staff and all the hard work they put in and the incredible work, and also that I want to make sure they get recognized for the years of service they gave to doing public interest law and supporting public interest law and civil rights. I do want to have special recognition to 2 particular guests, and they are sitting at my table because they are particular trailblazers in our society and for our community. First is Dolores Huerta, who is here today, setting an example for all of us and working for the rights of our farm worker community. And of course to Justice Moreno, who has been a trailblazer in the legal field and set the right example. I too want to take an opportunity to congratulate our honorees, Odilia Romero, who I've only had the pleasure of meeting tonight. So congratulations for the recognition. And I want to take a point of personal privilege to recognize Lalo Alcaraz and Monica Garcia, who will remember fondly those days at UC Berkeley in the late 1980s when we hung out and we made a change and a difference. Go Bears, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.
Damas y caballeros, please join me in welcoming attorney and NBC Latino contributor and your host for this evening, Raul Reyes.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the MALDEF 2022 Los Angeles Awards Gala. I am so honored to be your host this evening on behalf of the MALDEF Board of Directors and MALDEF President and General Counsel Thomas Saenz. MALDEF has a tremendous program tonight that begins with 3 amazing honorees, each of whom stands united around a shared mission of promoting a greater America for all of us, especially for our large and growing Latino community. And I just want to say, I know everybody in this room is busy. You know, everybody has a lot going on, especially this week. So I truly appreciate it that you came out to support the group, to support MALDEF. And if you're in this room and you can hear me, you are all MALDEF family. So I appreciate it. And especially because I am almost as old as MALDEF. So pretty much my whole life, I have heard about the incredible work they've done, the legal battles they've succeeded in. So it's just such a privilege and a pleasure to be with you all tonight. And I wanted to begin by sharing some highlights from MALDEF's history. MALDEF opened its doors in 1968 in San Antonio, Texas, following efforts by Latino lawyers and community activists to create a legal organization to promote the civil rights of Latinos living in the United States. And today, MALDEF is known as the Latino legal voice for civil rights in America. So for 54 years, MALDEF has worked in the courts, in the halls of Congress, and in state and local legislatures to create new laws and policies with wide-ranging impact for the Latino community and for our entire nation. MALDEF works to secure the right to a meaningful vote, to equal educational opportunity, to a non-discriminatory workplace, and fairness and justice in every endeavor across the country. And when you think about it, think about all the lawyers and attorneys you may know or who are here in this room. In 2022, in our nation, only about 5% of attorneys are Latino. And for Latinas, it's less than 3%. So the incredible work that MALDEF is doing is truly the best of our legal community. And tonight, MALDEF honors 3 individuals who have made immeasurable contributions and who are united by a shared commitment to principles of equality and fairness for all. I have the pleasure of introducing MALDEF's first esteemed honoree this evening, Odilia Romero, the recipient of MALDEF's Excellence in Community Service Award. Ms. Romero is the co-founder and executive director of Comunidades Indígenas en el Liderazgo, Cielo. It was at a young age that she came to this country and saw how few resources there were for indigenous individuals who did not speak English or Spanish. Now, she has over a decade of experience organizing indigenous migrant communities. Cielo, an indigenous, woman-led, intergenerational organization founded in 2016, combats racism towards indigenous people by bringing visibility and resources to the indigenous migrant communities. The unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic also, as many of you know, also brought disproportionate effects on undocumented indigenous people. Ms. Romero y Cielo created the Undocu Indigenous Fund to specifically address these challenges by allocating resources to support the well-being of indigenous undocumented communities in Los Angeles. From the outset of the pandemic to January 2021, they gave out $2.2 million in COVID relief funds. Yeah. Ms. Romero is an independent interpreter of Zapotec, Spanish, and English for indigenous communities in Los Angeles and throughout California. Her knowledge and experience are held in high regard with multiple academic publications, awards, and lectures in universities across the United States, including Johns Hopkins, USC, and UCLA. Ms. Romero has also published on the challenges of organizing indigenous communities, developing women's leadership, and preserving the culture of indigenous communities. Her work has been featured in the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times, Time Magazine, Vogue, and Democracy Now! So now let's take a look. Let's take a look at the video profile that MALDEF created for Odilia.
You know, what I see that drives Odilia is, you know, she often goes back to that story of being a 10-year-old Zapotec child, not understanding why, you know, she left her hometown of Sogocho, and then coming to the United States and, you know, having to learn English at school and Spanish in the streets of Los Angeles. And her drive really comes from that, you know, 40 years later, she continues to see indigenous children going through the same trials and tribulations that she went through. And she's very clear that it's not necessary, it doesn't have to be that way. And so in many ways, I see that her work now is part of her own healing journey, and also a way for her to continue to stand in her political identity as an indigenous person.
My perspective about Odilia is that she's really rooted to a sense of justice, a sense of equity, also a sense of respect, for communities that have many times have been made invisible, even though they're present in whether here in Los Angeles or in Mexico, that are great contributors to the well-being of our communities. And so to me, that idea of respecting contribution, respecting existence, and for me, it's an honor to work with Odilia, because I just think she's a fierce fighter for justice. She has built a legacy in Los Angeles and also, I would say, in Mexico, because she's very well respected across borders, is that the understanding that indigenous communities exist here in Los Angeles, they exist in this country, and that they deserve to be represented in the same way. That she has created opportunities to really lift up their needs, but for all of us to change, for all of us to understand that this idea of bilingualism, where you only speak in English or in Spanish, it has to be multilingual when we're talking about the Latino community, that we should have to think about all the different languages that our community speaks, and that we have to ensure that our programming and and the services that we put forward actually take into account those linguistic needs that our community has.
I don't know if there's really a measurable way of what Odilia has accomplished, because I think if you speak to everybody that she has helped, she has interacted with, it's really hard to measure that. But I would say, like, in a lot of ways, Odilia is the mother of, like, language access, fighting language violence. She has been doing this for over 20 years. I feel like as an indigenous woman, she has been doing this all her life. And she has used her role in uplifting other indigenous women and other indigenous youths. And I think that within itself is a big accomplishment, because here in Los Angeles, there will continue to be indigenous people. And Odilia has really accomplished being able to build with community, include other indigenous groups. She is a Zapoteca woman, but, you know, she knows it is important to really highlight the diversity of Indigenous people. She includes many different Indigenous Mayas, such as I myself am Maya Acateco Canjoval. We have folks in the Cielo team who are Maya Quiche, Maya Mam, Maya Tzotzil, Mixteco, and I think that's a really big accomplishment to bring different communities together and really show that we're fighting this system that's oppressing folks from across these imposed borders.
There are so many things that I can say that I'm proud of Odilia's accomplishments, but I just really want to say that her work in order to organize translators in detention centers, especially for our immigrant children who are Indigenous, who don't speak Spanish, who obviously don't speak English. And she has these translators go into detention centers to talk to unaccompanied minors so that those children can have a voice. Because without Odilia's work, without the work of Cielo, or the work that she's done for years and years, people would not have a voice. And what has happened in these detention centers is we have lost children. Children have died in these detention centers because they weren't able to communicate with adults what they needed. So by having Cielo exist, of having Odilia's work of organizing translators to go into immigration detention centers and give these children a voice is so significant. And we all owe a huge debt of gratitude to her for what she has done. It has saved lives. But those same translators are going into hospitals, they're going into prison cells, they're making sure that people are able to articulate their needs and many times also speak up about the injustices that they suffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Odilia Romero, Excellence in Community Service.
Padiur na bajire bajaure che Jos crente cre baji junga chaljo da jinjunto neto cielo Jos crente cre MALDEF ba chalro che da jinche junto. I'm not going to interpret that. I said it slow enough, you know. And let's do an exercise. Can you already padir? Navajire. What did you say? You probably don't know, right? Well, thank you, MALDEF, Tomas, and the whole MALDEF team for this award tonight. I am honored to be here and receive this award. And this award I want to dedicate it to my son, who is out in the audience, who constantly, hey Biani, where are you? My 12-year-old that I often leave home when I have to travel, or that he wonders where I go when I leave, or when, and he always like, hey, you have a kid at home. I know about those other kids too, you know? So I wanna really give this award for Biani. But I'm gonna go on with my speech that I prepared. This gesture is part of an ongoing collaboration and efforts to unite our communities. As part of an Indigenous community, I know about your fight and the importance of defending civil rights. I'm a Zapotec woman from one of the 69 Indigenous communities in Mexico who have fought for centuries against colonization to keep our worldview and traditions alive. We keep telling our stories and highlighting our diversity because there's more than Nahuatl and Aztecs in Mexico. The Mayans are going to be popular tomorrow, so there's more than Mayans. The Aztec calendar and the conchero dances are just a few of the hundreds of cultural expressions passing from generation to another. So I want to take this opportunity to invite you all to learn more about indigenous communities, about our music, about our sones and jarabes, our marimbas, about our food, and our cultural expressions. Tonight, my calling is one of celebration of diverse backgrounds, and I stand against cultural homogenization because that is rooted in colonialism and feeds the stigma and racism. I also want to acknowledge the support of the Mexican-American relatives that has been shown throughout the years since the Bracero program that our communities have been here. Like the first interpretation groups was founded in collaboration with the Chicano Federation. So there has been a relationship for many years. And I can think of many examples where alliances of communities has been significant importance. During the pandemic, it was our Mexican-American relatives in philanthropy that we were able to support indigenous communities. And it was through our other Latinx and Chicanos and Mexican-American communities that we were able to get vaccinations for indigenous communities when the government was not responding. This collaboration must continue because our people, indigenous people, continue to be displaced. Because thousands of children have to leave their homes in order to live, risking crossing the border, and then to come to LA and find out that they're not welcomed. Indigenous people, we are 10% of the population in the world, and we hold 80% of the natural resources. That means our displacement is gonna continue and it's gonna be intensified as the world and capital needs more resources. So together we must fight to stop this language violence against indigenous people. And when I say language violence, it's because one word makes a difference about life or death, freedom or incarceration. One word will make the difference. An example in Spanish, if I say, you know, te voy a introducir, is not, that will make a difference in someone's life because it's when I'm introducing someone, is actually te voy a presentar. Same thing goes in indigenous languages. If I say cholesterol, I have to say I either had fat in my blood, I have oil in my blood, or it's a disease that is caused by lard in my blood. There's no such things as cholesterol from Spanish or to English. So we need to fight against language violence. And we need to fight against people like our relative in city council, because their words make a difference in our life. I often get asked, how do I feel? I'm like, I'm numb. You know, we hear those words every day, but how they translate to our life. When there's a woman in the hospital and she gives the wrong amount of medication because that information was not given to her in her language. Then comes social services. Then you go to court. Then you have to fight for your child, right? So that's what their words translate into our daily life. So we need to join forces to stop this hate against indigenous people. This is what I wanted to ask of every one of you in this room, to make a difference, to be in solidarity with indigenous people, to fight against racism and colonialism in your workplaces. And you could do that by informing and educating your staff about diversity of this city, not only of indigenous people, but also of other communities that don't speak the dominant languages. By creating a language access plan. And also, did you all know that there's 17 indigenous language families spoken in LA County? Yes. We created a map during the pandemic through the Undocumented Indigenous Fund, and there are 17 language families. And by that I say language families because I speak Zapoteco, my husband speaks Zapoteco, but we could never have a conversation in Zapoteco. I know. So with this, I want to end and say, together we must resist racism and discriminations against people. It needs to stop. Thank you, George Krenle.
Mil gracias, Odilia, for your service to the indigenous people of the Americas, and especially Los Angeles over these many years. I would like to bring to the stage MALDEF's Los Angeles Regional Council, Ernest Herrera.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ernest Herrera, and I'm the Western Regional Counsel. Now, for many of you may know that our MALDEF office here in Los Angeles does not just cover Los Angeles, does not just cover California, but covers what is included in the Ninth Circuit, which is the entire West Coast, Arizona, Nevada, Montana, Wyoming, and Alaska and Hawaii, although we don't have any cases yet. I call dibs on any cases in Hawaii, though, Tom. But tonight I want to say thank you for your continuing support of MALDEF's important mission. In the Western region, MALDEF has worked over the last year to aid Latinos in facing new and continuing challenges. MALDEF fought for DACA recipients and other immigrants by suing banks and credit unions across the country, including in California and Nevada, for blatantly discriminatory lending practices. MALDEF also continued its ongoing battle to secure equal access to healthcare for immigrants in California. In lawsuits against a county in Washington state and against a major corporation, MALDEF advocated for Latinos facing discrimination in the workplace. MALDEF also endeavored to ensure justice for farm workers who were denied pay in California. In the area of voting rights, MALDEF has continued to protect Latino voting strength as it grows. As states and local jurisdictions continued post-census redistricting well into this year, MALDEF served as a community resource and advocate for Latinos seeking fair representation. These efforts included workshops, attending many meetings, data analysis, and demanding fair redistricting maps from government officials and commissions, and culminated in greater representation in California's state government and local governments across our region. One other effort has been in MALDEF's ongoing lawsuit against Washington state over a legislative map that was designed to deny Latino voters the opportunity to elect candidates of their choice. In addition to redistricting, MALDEF took Arizona to court again over a new law that unfairly targets Latinos and naturalized U.S. citizens for removal from the voter registration rolls. None of these efforts would be possible without the excellent legal staff of the Western region who work so hard every day. As I call your name, I want you to stand so that we can all recognize you here tonight. Those staff are Legal Assistant Mario Jose Corona and staff attorneys Andres Olguin Flores, Dalen Thrift Viveros, Luis Lozada, and Jasmine Parra. Jasmine is in Sacramento and could not be with us tonight. I also am proud to welcome our newest staff attorney in the West, Erica Cervantes. She just started with us this week, so we're happy to have her. Now, I mentioned that impact we had on redistricting in this decade, and our work is still going as I speak. We could not have had such an impact on state and local redistricting and on the congressional maps, especially here in California, without MALDEF's excellent redistricting coordinators and staff. And again, I want you to stand. I know one of you is here tonight. And those staff include National Redistricting Coordinator Stephen Ochoa, National Research Analyst Laura Daly, National Redistricting Program Assistant Gabriel Lizardo, and former Western Regional Redistricting Coordinators Kathy Ramirez and Mayra Valadez. Finally, none of this work would be possible without the guidance of President and General Counsel Thomas Saenz, Vice President of Litigation Nina Perales, who is here with us tonight, and National Senior Counsel Leticia Salcedo, who is based in Sacramento. All of your support tonight will enable us to continue our fight for equal rights for Latinos in the workplace, in the democratic process, in the classroom, and in every aspect of public life. Thank you.
It is with great pleasure that I introduce MALDEF's second honoree this evening, Monica Garcia, Los Angeles Unified School District Board member and recipient of MALDEF's Excellence in Community Service Award. Board member Monica Garcia proudly represents Board District 2 at the Los Angeles Unified School District, the largest school district in the country with an elected Board of Education. Monica's election in June 2006 made her only the third Latina to serve on the Board of Education in its 155-year history. No joke. So Monica and the educational justice movement have successfully championed school reform models that offer students smaller and more personalized settings, giving school sites the autonomy they need to prepare students for college and careers. Monica also led the campaign for Measure Q, the largest local school bond measure, which invests $7 billion towards repairing and upgrading schools and building new facilities. The funds also brought Health and Human Services and the $50 million Wellness Center initiative to school campuses. She has encouraged local hiring. Yeah. She has encouraged local hiring in the largest public works program in the nation, building 131 new campuses, workforce housing, green space, library, and athletic facilities all across the district. And previously, Monica served as an academic advisor in South Los Angeles at Fauché Learning Center and Edison Middle School. Monica graduated from the University of California, Berkeley, and earned her master's degree from University of Southern California. She is the proud daughter of Mexican immigrants who met at Robert Louis Stevenson Middle School. So let's take a look at the video, this beautiful video that MALDEF produced to pay tribute to Monica's work.
My first impression of Monica was an extremely positive personality. I saw a lot of leadership there. You know, somebody you want to follow, somebody you want to be with and hang around. And also when I met her, I immediately got away her commitment to really improve the conditions of the schools, and her commitment to really ensure that all students, regardless of what they look like, where they come from, what language they speak, regardless of age, ability, all that. She wanted all of those students to have an opportunity to excel in their schooling.
Wow, Monica's accomplishments are too many to name, but what I can say is that she has been a champion for racial equity from A through G, really setting a greater rigor for all students and setting the expectation that the LAUSD can graduate 100% of the students. When I think back to when Community Coalition started to deal with the high dropout rate that South LA schools were experiencing, where over 2/3 of students stopped attending school between the 9th and 12th grade, to where the LAUSD is now, where it's graduating over 85% of its students. That's something that we can all attribute to the leadership of Monica. When we think about A through G college prep for all and really pushing the district to offer college prep courses across the district, especially in areas like South LA, Southeast LA, East LA, the East San Fernando Valley, that is something that we can attribute to Monica. When we think about the Student Equity Needs Index that was, that came about at the demand of students and parents after Prop 30, and as a part of the Equity is Justice fight, and that Student Equity Needs Index is now dedicating over $700 million to high and highest need schools. That's something that we can attribute to the leadership of Monica.
You have a lot of politicians that are there for the political power and about themselves. Monica is about the communities and working with people in the community and the changing demographics that are going on. What she cares about is that every single child is having the same kind of opportunity. In many instances, they don't get the support of the parents that they need, so she's there to make sure that schools are providing supportive services to many of the kids that sometimes really need that extra boost. She's going to be remembered for being a very thoughtful board member, not just attending board meetings and voting on issues, but someone that's involved with the children and the parents as well as the teachers in this struggle every single day to educate our kids.
Monica is so clearly driven by a passion for justice. That's what drives and animates her in everything she's done. And you see it so clearly in the work she's done on the school board. As an advocate for equity, her work has allowed her to be a clear voice for all kids in LA, whether they go to traditional public schools or charter schools. She's committed and has been committed to her district in the East Side, but she's also committed to kids wherever they are, because Monica understands that when we advocate for educational justice and educational rights, we're advocating for a better future. And Monica has cut through a lot of the polarization around race and around politics that has divided LA because of her clarity. And I saw that early on when she was a student activist at Berkeley, but I see it so clearly in her role on the board. When she served as board president, she was the champion of the Equity Funding Initiative to make sure that funds were spread fairly to schools, and that in fact the schools that serve our most disadvantaged students got more in the way of resources and support. Monica was also the lead advocate for creating new schools at a time when LA was one of the most crowded school districts in the nation. She advocated the construction of new buildings and to address this crisis in the community. So these are part of the legacy that Monica leaves. It's a legacy we should all be proud of. It's a legacy I think any elected official in Los Angeles, in California, or the country would be proud of, because what she's accomplished is literally built in concrete. It's the schools that will benefit children for many generations to come.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome and congratulations to Monica Garcia.
Buenas noches, MALDEF family. How amazing to be with you this evening. And I just want to say to Tom, to the board, to the sponsors, Supervisor Antonia Hernandez, Dolores Huerta, Judge Moreno, I just want to tell you that you have been so successful in charting a North Star for our young people. We have been successful in helping more of our students read and write and think and believe in themselves. And you have called us all to really examine what would it look like if we made room for all of us to get to graduation. So thank you, MALDEF. Thank you, MALDEF. When we started in LA was busing children, and we had year-round schooling, and some kids got 180 days and some kids got 163 days. But I'm gonna tell you, I just wanna say MALDEF has been there all of my life. And I am one of the young people who benefited from your work. My time on the school board has been an absolute honor. And remembering Paul Schrade and Victor Viramontes, who would come to every board meeting and just say, MALDEF is in the room. And so whether it was educational malpractice or negligence, you brought consciousness to policy making, and you brought consciousness to whether or not we were going to vote for status quo or the change that our children deserve. And MALDEF, you have been a partner. When LA, the epicenter of educational justice, when Barack Obama said, close dropout factories, and Antonio Villaraigosa, our mayor, said, you can't be a great city without having great schools. I just want you to know, your representatives at the board meeting, in the parent centers, I mean, MALDEF's education program goes deep and is significant. So I come to you as my term closes a month from tomorrow. And I want to say the road is very long. We have not yet achieved 100% literacy. And I remember when Supervisor Molina would just say, Monica, why can't fifth grade teachers teach fifth graders how to read? And why are we not acting like there's a crisis? And Tom really brought, when the Court of Appeals in 2006 said there is no crisis in Los Angeles looks like every other urban center in the country, MALDEF stood up to say something is wrong and we must continue to lean in, fight inside the family, know that we cannot abandon that class of 23 that graduates this year and is not just the generation, they call themselves the generation that overcame COVID. But I want to remind you the class of 41 is born this year. And for all the good that we do in so many places, I just want to emphasize that you are all the role models our children want to see. And you are all so important in what you do every day to make sure no one gets away from not being involved in the fight for equity, access, and justice. I am extremely honored to be here in your company today. And I am celebrating with my mother, Guillermina, who is, of course, the light of my life, and my sisters, and my sisters, Ana Maria, who is an attorney and always cautions me on educational malpractice issues, and Lilia, our labor commissioner for the state of California, and Patti, who supports Justice Rubin at the Court of Appeals. But we really come together to celebrate MALDEF and to wish you great, great success in the agitation, litigation, cooperation, negotiation, legislation, everything that MALDEF does, it needs to be successful. And I just wish, Tom, I asked him, do you still love it? And he said, yes. So God bless Tom and the family. Adelante, MALDEF.
Wow. I know I am biased. I come from a family of teachers, but that was beautiful. It's truly beautiful. That was from the heart. So thank you. Thank you, Monica, for your dedication to empowering the Latino community. So MALDEF's final award tonight goes to Lalo Alcaraz. Yeah. Come on. Lalo Alcaraz, as most of you know, is an award-winning visual and media artist and television and film writer. He has been chronicling the ascendancy of Latinos in the U.S. for over a quarter century, creating the syndicated daily comic strip La Cucaracha, which has been seen in the LA Times and numerous other newspapers nationwide. Lalo is founder and jefe-in-chief of Pocho, which started out as just a Xerox zine and now ranks as a leading Latino satirical website. Prolific political cartoonist, Lalo is the winner of 6 Los Angeles Press Club Awards for Best Editorial Cartoon. That's right. His work has appeared on 60 Minutes, CBS News, NBC, Univision, and in hundreds of publications. His graphic novel and cartoon books include the New York Times bestseller, A Most Imperfect Union, Latino USA Cartoon History, 50th Anniversary Edition Migra Mouse, Political Cartoons on Immigration, and La Cucaracha. Lalo was also a staff writer and a producer on the animated TV show Border Town on Fox. He next served as cultural consultant on the Oscar-winning movie Coco. Yeah. Alcaraz was recently cultural consultant, consulting producer, and writer on the animated series The Loud House, and now he's on the Nickelodeon's The Casa Grandes. Lalo is in the midst of a campaign to fight COVID-19 vaccine misinformation in the Latino community, specifically the campesino population of California's Central Valley. And so he has been doing cartoons and animations with covidlatino.org, based out of Arizona State University. He is a graduate of San Diego State University and UC Berkeley. That's right. Lalo was born in San Diego, California, to Mexican immigrant parents from Sinaloa and Zacatecas. So let's enjoy the video tribute that MALDEF created as a tribute to Lalo.
When did I first meet Lalo? He may not remember this, but I remember as a college student in the early 90s going to a conference at the University of Amherst and watching Lalo perform as part of Chicano Secret Service, a Latino comedy troupe that I saw actually before Culture Clash. Lalo and his buddies were my first experience in their use of humor to provoke political consciousness and activism. And what was my first impression? Exactly that. Clearly clever, clearly funny, ton of humor, but also smart, and had a tremendous instinct for what buttons to push to get people not just to laugh, but to think. And hopefully not just think, but to get involved and begin to take action to right wrongs, not just countering discrimination against Latinos, but all the issues that we care about, whether it's political representation, access to education, economic opportunity, and more.
From the moment I saw Lalo's work, I thought he was a genius. From the moment I met him, I thought he was a mad genius. And And all along, though, I knew this was someone who cared about Latinos, who cared about representation of Latinos, who cared about uplifting Latinos, but also was not afraid to smack down Latinos when we needed smacking down to, and definitely wasn't afraid of the alt losers who try to make Latinos out to be something that we're not, which is a threat to the United States, a threat to other people.
Lalo was the first Latino political cartoonist to break into the mainstream in the U.S., the first to have a widely syndicated political comic strip starring Latinos. He single-handedly changed Disney's mind about how it would approach a major movie. He's inspired millions of people. He's a 2-time Pulitzer Prize nominee. He won the Her Block Award. He also got a blue check mark from Twitter back when it meant something.
The legacy Lalo's building is that it's making that American dream come true. That you could do whatever you want. And just, for example, for Lalo, just look at all the credits he's done. And he can also be an artist. You don't have to just do one thing. Like a lot of kids nowadays, or even growing up, you're like, oh yeah, what are you going to do when you grow up? You'd say one thing. But if you look at Lalo, he's doing like 20 things at the same time. Like even like I'm sure right now he's like writing a script. He's drawing a cartoon. He's doing voice acting. He's directing another project. He's making refried beans. But that's the legacy he's gonna leave. He's gonna leave like just stuff for every generation to look at. All the history, like. His comics belong in history books now because everything he's been doing, and being maybe the only top Chicano artist out there, comic book artist, like that's something that's you would think in 2022 to be more, but he's opening that door for the next generation to come.
What drives Lalo is this sense of injustice that Latinos have far too long been suppressed in this country. And so, therefore, we need to fight back. We can't just be like, oh, it's going to happen eventually. No, we need things and we need things now. But also that if we are going to assume power, that it needs to be a just power. It needs to be one that's not corrupt. It needs to be one that uplifts people and doesn't create these divisions that our oppressors long put upon us. It's like, what good is power? What good is Latino succeeding if we're just going to be like the people before us? I think Lalo really wants to see something transformative, so he's going to celebrate that, and he's going to trash that which doesn't live up to those ideals. Lalo's accomplishments are, you have a 30-year illustrated history of Latinos in Southern California specifically, but also the United States in general. All his editorial cartoons, all his comic strips with La Cucaracha, also his, the Pochoir of Power, also his pláticas, his speeches to students in elementary schools, junior highs, high schools, colleges, community groups, his books. Twice nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. I'm not lying when I think he might be the most nominated Latino in the Pulitzer Prize's history, because sadly there's not enough of us out there. But just, it's an accomplishment of pride. It's an accomplishment of hustle. It's an accomplishment of genius. And he's willing to, I don't want to say turn, but he's willing to criticize people that he has celebrated in the past if they do something wrong. So Lalo, at the end, he is beholden to a higher ideal, and he's not going to be swayed by being popular or being next to corridors of power if that means him not saying the truth. So that is something that you cannot say for many people of his stature, and the fact that he's held on to that for so long, it's absolutely incredible.
Fearless. Righteous indignation about the lack of humanity, common decency, and honesty in this country, a desire to shine a light on the exploitation of the underprivileged, and an insistence on celebrating his culture and his community in defiance of people who'd rather they assimilate or get out. It's humbling having a friend who's a cultural icon. Lalo, your art is as funny, as inspiring, and as important as you are. You deserve all the honors you're receiving and more. I'm very proud of you, brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome and congratulations to Lalo Alcaraz.
I was trying to hold the award, but then I remembered when I got the Cesar Chavez Award, I dropped it. And that was not cool, so yeah. Hi, I'm Lalo. Did someone throw pepper in my eyes? Because, man, that was pretty cool. I don't know what to say. I'm happy to be here with all the Maldefians. And supporters, and thank you for sticking it out for my award. I was hoping that the art pieces would still be out there so I could do a commercial for the silent auction, but you know they already grabbed. Oh, they're good, yeah. Go buy the damn pieces. They're out there. They're worth so much more than the value I put. When we did I did one print for the Cheech GALA, and the people were so drunk they paid $2,000 for one of my prints. But they may be worth more. I don't know. I'm not an art dealer. But anyway, wow. I want to thank MALDEF. The MALDEF is like, you know, that big cholo cousin of yours that will beat up anybody that messes with you. And I don't mind being next to the corridors of power, like Gustavo was saying. I don't mind that because you know what? I'm a cartoonist. I'm a satirist. I might need the occasional giant cholo cousin to back me up on a few things, because if you could see my stack of hate mail, we were talking, Raul was at the table, and we were talking about, I mean, just Latino journalists, you know, get tons of hate mail just for having a Spanish last name. You know, you could be doing, you know, reviews of, you know, gardening tools, and if you were, maybe that's a bad choice. You could be doing car reviews, and if you were a Latino journalist doing that, you'll get hate mail from people saying, I want to kill you, I want to deport you, you know, etc. It hasn't gotten really any better over the years. I think people, you know, we're in this like weird era of people feel like they can say anything to you, but you know what? We need the threat of a MALDEF. We need the threat of getting punched in the nose to show these people that we're not standing down. We're not going away. I'm not moving to Canada. All right. I want to live and die here. This is where I'm from. You know, a handy indicator of knowing where you're at is I always look at a patch of nopales. If I see a patch of nopales on the street, I'm like, oh yeah, Mexico. It's my territory. You know, same for, you know, it's like the indigenous territory. And what Odilia said earlier about, I was going to say something even more, I mean, you really spelled it out, you know, that I was going to say something like, we should all love each other and hug each other a little more, you know, because I'm getting nicer in my old age. But, you know, the recent incidents in our community show that we really do need to not just not be jerks to other communities, but we need to hug those other communities. We need to embrace all our communities here in LA, and we need to embrace our communities within our community. And we need to be nicer. And that's probably the nicest thing I'll ever say in my life, because that's not my job. But was there one more thing? Oh yeah, I want to do my stock Monica Garcia joke. Earlier, Because we went to Berkeley together, and we were in Mecha and Rasa recruitment and all the protests. And when you saw her talking on the microphone was not turned on. So that's like the 10th time I've done that joke. Anyway, I want to shout out to my wife, Victoria, who came tonight. Earlier she told me, hey, we forgot to invite our daughter and her boyfriend who live in LA. And then she reminded me a little before I got up, she goes, remember, we have 3 kids. So you might have seen them in the photos. I don't know if they use all the photos, but my son Santiago, who's at Berkeley. My daughter Paloma, who's at University of New Mexico. And my daughter Amaya. This is the most public information about my family I've ever said. So this is all off the record, guys. And my daughter Amaya, who we did not invite, and she's up out in the valley somewhere. I don't know what the valley is. It's too far. Anyway, I think I've said everything I've wanted to say in my unprepared speech here. Please go bid on the pieces. Where are they? Are they really available for bidding still? Yes, they are. They're over there somewhere. I can't see them. Bid on them. They're beautiful. One of them is from one of my other favorite ladies. Sorry, Victoria, but Dolores Huerta, who I took the first photo with her because, it's Dolores. So I appreciate all the support. Please support MALDEF. MALDEF has been there for our communities forever. So let's support each other again. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, Lalo, for your efforts and your work in representing the Latino community in the best ways possible, and for making us all laugh while you're doing so. I would like to welcome back to the stage MALDEF President and General Counsel and my legal hero, Thomas Saenz, who's going to give us a pep talk.
Wow. What an inspirational evening. Our honorees have honored us with their inspiring words and directions for where we go in the future. Hardly leaves me anything to say. Just kidding. I want to first emphasize, as Lalo did, that we still have 3 limited edition prints in the back that are up for you to bid through silent auction. I will give you all about half of my speech, which means you have about 45 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. Antonio, I'm just kidding. But we're going to end that in about 10 minutes, so rush back there and you'll miss the most boring parts of my speech. I begin, as always, with thanks. And of course, we begin with our brilliant and really inspiring in his own right, someone who could and may one day be, of course, an honoree for the work that he does in journalism. And that's our very capable MC. Please join me in thanking Raul Reyes for guiding us through tonight. I do want to recognize that tonight we have many of my bosses in the room. Our MALDEF Board of Directors will meet tomorrow morning, and I want to recognize, as I will in more detail in a moment, the important contributions of our board members, and I want to ask all of our past and present MALDEF board members who are with us tonight to please stand and accept our gratitude for all the work you have done and continue to do to support our mission. MALDEF board members, please stand. It is also the case, as I stated earlier, that our staff continue their work even after they leave us. Without exception, former Maldefians, as my esteemed predecessor Antonia used to say, once a Maldefian, always a Maldefian. It is stuck. And it is true not just to mean they're a part of our family, but their contributions to our mission in support of the civil rights of Latinos continue throughout their careers and lives after they leave us. So let me please ask all of our past and present MALDEF staff members who are with us tonight to also stand and receive our recognition for what you continue to do for the civil rights of all in the United States. Staff members, please. It is the case that I have the great honor of leading this organization with the more than capable partnership of vice presidents whose commitment to the organization is demonstrated by their tenures. The most recent vice president joined us 6 years ago. The others have been with us even longer. And because of that board meeting tomorrow, 3 of our 4 vice presidents are here tonight. All of our vice presidents, by the way, are women. And I want to recognize the VPs who are here tonight: Shelley Malchuk, Gina Montoya, Nina Perales, and I want to acknowledge our vice president who unfortunately could not be here tonight, Sandra Hernandez. As I mentioned earlier, this is our first gala on our regular schedule post-pandemic. Hard to say the word post-pandemic because I never know whether we're really post and into the endemic, but it's great to be back in November. More about that in a moment. But putting together an event like this is not easy, and I want to recognize all the folks who have helped us tonight, led by Gina Montoya, but including Amy Borrayo, Jose Delgado, Jesus Arduzco, Bryant Gomez, Alexis Pantoja, Sandra Hernandez, Julie Gallego, and our law school and former staff volunteers who helped us to put together tonight's event. Please join me in asking them to stand and thanking them. And now I want to recognize and ask you to join me shortly in a moment of silence for 3 folks who we have recently lost, who epitomize the partnership and collaboration that is essential to the work that MALDEF does. As President and General Counsel, and previously as a Vice President of Litigation and Regional Counsel and Staff Attorney, I was accustomed to receiving public attention. Now, I tell you, as President and General Counsel, some of that is welcome, some of it not so much. But so many labor to contribute to our work without that kind of public recognition, without that kind of public acknowledgement. And I want to acknowledge 3 of those folks who in different ways contributed to the work of MALDEF. First, this past April, we lost unexpectedly a longtime MALDEF board member, Professor Michael Olivas, a professor at the University of Houston Law Center and briefly president of the University of Houston downtown. Michael contributed in every meeting he attended of the MALDEF Board of Directors, and beyond that, outside of his work on the board, he was a recognized and long-term champion of Latinos in the law school professoriate. I remember in law school so many years ago that he was the acknowledged expert on Latinos in law school professorships and the person you went to help to move that goal along. In addition, he was the keeper and really the disseminator of so much valuable information about efforts to protect the rights of Latino immigrant youth. We lost him in April, and his contributions to MALDEF were extraordinary. More recently, just a few weeks ago, we lost a MALDEF staff member who had been with us in our headquarters in Los Angeles for 26 years. She was in our accounting department initially, and then she joined our development department. And as a 26-year employee, she is one of the longest-serving Maldefians in our history. She was extraordinary in her kindness, in her commitment. What made her stand out in my mind was whenever we had an after-hours event, she was the first to volunteer to be there, to check folks in, to help us to collect whatever money was being collected as part of a fundraising event. She always was there demonstrating in person her commitment. And just a few weeks ago rather, she lost her second battle with cancer. And I want to acknowledge Leticia Urquidi and her commitment as a behind-the-scenes staff member to MALDEF's mission. And finally, he was mentioned very briefly by one of our honorees. I want to recognize the loss this week of the tremendous force of nature who died just short of his 98th birthday, Paul Schrade, who was famous for his enduring connection to the Kennedy family, to Robert F. Kennedy in particular. He was wounded when Robert Kennedy was assassinated and recognized as a labor leader. But Paul was also a partner of MALDEF, as Monica alluded to. He worked with us tirelessly, despite even then his advanced age, to ensure that the children, almost all of them Latino, in the Pico Union neighborhood would have a school instead of the decrepit and falling apart Ambassador Hotel, that they would have a school that would be a living legacy to Robert Kennedy and what he stood for. And what MALDEF achieved in court, and together with so many allies on the board and in the community, what was achieved there would never have been achieved without Paul Schrade. So I wanted to begin tonight by asking you to remember with me and join me in a moment of silence in honor of these three unsung champions of MALDEF, Professor Michael Olivas, Leticia Urquidi, and Paul Schrade. Thank you. And of course, I want to acknowledge once more our tremendously vibrant champions honored tonight, whose work that we honor is just the beginning of their ongoing commitment to our shared mission of promoting the civil and constitutional rights of all, promoting inclusion and advancement for all within the Latino community. The compelling and innovative Odilia Romero, thank you. The committed and creative Monica Garcia, and the brilliant and tenacious Lalo Alcaraz. They have inspired us tonight, they inspired us with their example, and they will lead us in future years. Thank you again for allowing us all to acknowledge you tonight. It was prescient when one of my predecessors established this event to follow the November election every other year. Sometimes we have gotten together in mourning, recognizing the tremendous harm dealt to us at our polling places in California and nationwide. Other times we have come together in great celebration, recognizing that another milestone has been achieved because of the elections 2 days before this event. Tonight, we get together with some uncertainty, of course, about the ultimate outcome of the election 2 days ago, but knowing that whatever the outcome, by my count, this is the 4th consecutive midterm election going back to 2010, where the expected narrative of that election changed. From the day before the election to election day, the narrative changed, and it changed because of Latino voters. We must recognize in this room and demand recognition outside of this room for the fact that 2 days ago confirmed that Latino voters make the difference. That Latino voters are the tsunami that stopped the red wave. That Latino voters are the MAGA nemesis. But as we acknowledge this, as we know it in our hearts and in our minds, we are puzzled by the fact that so few among television pundits, in our newspapers, in media online, will acknowledge the truth of what I just said. And it troubles us, and we scratch our heads, and we wonder why. And I attribute it, as much as anything. Yes, part of it is about ongoing exclusion and discrimination in the media that recurs daily, despite the tremendous accomplishments and efforts going into changing it. And yes, part of it is because we are not allowed the opportunity to appear and comment on behalf of our own community, regardless of the media outlet. But in the end, I conclude and recognize that there may be disagreements, but that part of that refusal to acknowledge our impact and singular importance in these elections relates to the continuing demographic fear that confronts our community. I've spoken of this before and written about it. The fear that the growth of the Latino community, a community that in the last census accounted for 51% of the growth of the entire country's population, that growth and anticipated future growth inspires an unfortunate fear in the minds of some in our country. And our leaders respond to it, too many of them, with their own trepidation and refusal to publicly acknowledge our community and its impact. We have to confront that demographic fear and its pernicious effects on our community's advancement. It caused me to reflect on an event that has also been alluded to previously, and that we in this room must continue to grapple with. And that is, of course, the recent release of a recording and transcript of an appalling demonstration of irresponsible leadership by elected officials and union leader from within our own community. Appalling and irresponsible leadership. Demonstrations of casual racial prejudice, bias, and stereotyping that has no place in our present or future leadership of this city, the state, or the nation. But what has certainly affected me, perhaps as many of you, is not just the appropriate condemnation of that racial prejudice, that racial bias, that divisiveness within our own community, the stereotyping so casually thrown into a conversation. But what has also struck me is how so many in the media and among commentators have shifted from that appalling demonstration of irresponsible leadership to focus on the content of the discussion, which was about redistricting, which was about the allocation each decade of political power within our communities. And I have scratched my head about why the shift to that content, inspiring an investigation by our state attorney general, when only 20% of the city council participated in that appalling discussion. And indeed, I recall reading in the LA Times a commentator who described it as an attempt to hoard political power. My reaction to that was to say, how can you hoard what you don't have? How did we shift from an acknowledgement that Latinos are underrepresented in leadership of the city, the state, and the nation to an accusation against a community, because it was not against the irresponsible leaders alone, an accusation against the community that we are seeking to hoard political power? In the end, I concluded that while these conversations, with or without the crass and unacceptable racial prejudice, recognizing that these conversations, particularly in the redistricting arena, occur in every community. In every community. What I ultimately concluded is that this is yet another manifestation of the particular burden that we bear in the Latino community as we grow in size and political strength and are perceived as a threat by too many. At the bottom of that demographic fear, which I have otherwise described as folks' unspoken concerns that the America they grew up in will not be the same America for their grandchildren or their great-grandchildren. But in the most reduced political terms, and what those who exploit or subscribe to demographic fear will never say is that at bottom, demographic fear of the Latino community is a fear that the next majority, the Latino majority, will govern in the same way the last and current majority, white majority, governs. A concern that the Latino majority will do what the white majority did for so many years, which was to engage in racial exclusion, in racial oppression, and a monopoly not a hoarding, a monopoly on political and economic power, a concern that we will act like they did. That's why the content of that description about accreting, protecting political power that occurs in every community continues to have such an impact, because they are afraid that we will act like they did. I think we have to acknowledge that and acknowledge the burden that it places upon us. I know from my personal experience, briefly in government, I know from my personal experience, as do all of you living in communities of substantial Latino populations, I know that we will not govern the way the last majority did. That is not to say we will not have challenges about inclusion within our own broad Latino community and outside. But I know that our inclination as a people is not to govern as the last majority did. But the challenge that we face is that we will be expected to transition from significant underrepresentation today, name the corridor of power, and we are the most underrepresented racial group in power in that corridor. Whether it's media, corporate, government, academia, you name it, we are the most underrepresented in positions of leadership and authority today. When we are the majority, we will be expected, reasonably expected, to accept underrepresentation. Mind you, underrepresentation never accepted by the last majority, but we will be expected reasonably to accept underrepresentation in order to ensure that smaller minority communities are heard and included in leadership. But what we face as a community is a transition from underrepresentation for pernicious, historical, and continuing reasons of discrimination and exclusion, and a transition to underrepresentation for extraordinarily appropriate and reasonable concerns of ensuring that minority voices are heard and included. That is a transition that no other community has ever been expected to transpire. And it's extraordinary to go from underrepresentation for negative reasons to underrepresentation for appropriate and positive reasons. But that's what's being asked implicitly of our community. How do we navigate that transition? In my mind, we must do two things simultaneously. We are multitaskers in our community. If COVID taught us anything, it taught us that we are the premier multitaskers in this country. And here is the multitasking being asked of us. We must simultaneously continue to vigorously demand that underrepresentation of our community in every sector of leadership in this country must end. In January, we will celebrate, no, that's the wrong word, we will commemorate 20 years since the Census Bureau acknowledged that we had surpassed blacks in the United States to become the largest minority group in this country. 20 years. We must, in that context, continue to vigorously, and yes, sometimes uncomfortably, for some of the folks I hear from, uncomfortably demand that that underrepresentation end, and end immediately. And we cannot shy from that vigorous advocacy because of the acknowledged stupidity, the acknowledged inappropriateness of a handful of our own elected leaders. We cannot shy from demanding fair and equal representation. But at the same time, we must continue, I believe it's continue, to demonstrate that our leadership will not mirror the majority of the past, that our leadership today and in the future will be an inclusive and attentive, a democratic leadership of our city, our state, and our nation. This is not easy. This is complicated beyond what has been asked of any other community. But I commit to you that MALDEF will work with all of you in this room and beyond to ensure that that dual mission of demanding fair representation today, but demonstrating a different leadership of inclusion for tomorrow, that we will be in the courts, in the legislatures, and in our community, and hopefully on the pages of your newspaper and online and on television, demonstrating our commitment to that dual mission. And I know, given my understanding of our community, given the examples by our honorees tonight, I know that together we will achieve collectively with our allies and other communities that dual mission. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you all for joining in our next Herculean task.
All right. Thank you, Thomas. Again, I want to thank all of you for supporting MALDEF's Los Angeles 2022 Gala. Before we go, I just wanted to acknowledge we have in the back our technical gentlemen, our camera folks who are keeping this all going, and our the servers and staff here at the hotel. So join me in thanking all of them. And please, let's give another round of applause for each of our honorees and sponsors who are here tonight. A lot of emotion here tonight, and you know, like I said, I grew up hearing about MALDEF, and certainly I benefited in my own life from the work they have done. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for joining us and having me serve as your host on this special night. It has been a true honor, and we're going to see you all next year, MALDEF Familia. Gracias. Thank you. Good night.